1,000,000 voices.
All right, Katya. Hi. That's actually the first time I'm doing it on Instagram, so that's kind of new to me.
Yeah,
I'm more used to
us as well.
Oh, good. I've done Skype and all the Zooms and other videos, but not on 1,000,000 voices. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank everyone also who is joining us right now, who's making the time to be here today with us. This is exciting. It's also the first time that we do a live Instagram live here on Voices, so it's a first for everybody. But I want to thank you particularly, especially Vasyl, for making the time. And before we start, I just want to introduce you to everyone who's watching us right now. You have a very impressive CV, but I have a very good summary as well here. So Vasyl Miroshnichenko is a partner at CFC Big Ideas, a Kyiv-based strategic communications advisory company. He has over 15 years of experience advising clients on corporate communications, public affairs, and special situations. He is also the co-founder of Ukraine Crisis Media Center, an NGO set up in early March of 2014, aimed at amplifying Ukraine's voice internationally. So among many other achievements, in 2005, Vasyl was awarded a Chevening Scholarship by the British Council and the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office of the United Kingdom. He holds a Master of Science degree in Politics of the World Economy from the London School of Economics and Political Science. And he was a 2018 Marshall Memorial Fellow, a prestigious leadership program of the German Marshall Fund of the United States. So thank you so much. Welcome, Vasyl. And thank you so much for making the time. I know you have been, of course, under an extremely difficult situation in Ukraine. Like all Ukrainians, your life has been turned upside down. But also you have been busy as well giving interviews, I understand, to international media, TV stations and radios all over the world. So thank you so much for making the time and being here today with us.
Absolutely, Katya. Thanks a lot for the introduction. I just want to also say that we met there in 2005 when Katya also was a Chevening Scholar from Brazil. And that's already a connection which's been around almost 17 years.
Yes, I remember that. Good times. But I think it's so important that we're doing this today, because I have been in touch with you for a few days now and following your story and following stories of other people that I know also who are Ukrainian. Some of them live here in London, others are still in Ukraine. But I think to start with, let's go back in time a little bit to the beginning of it all. So when you first realized that the Russian invasion was a reality, that it was happening indeed, you were in Kyiv with your family. So describe to us your first thoughts when you realized that, and what happened next.
Well, we have also to backtrack a little bit, because the deployment of the Russian troops on the Ukrainian border has been going on for over 2 months already, or even 3 months. And of course, there was a great deal of discussion about what that's all about. Is it kind of a way that Russia is trying to intimidate Ukraine, put more leverage, and this kind of strategic ambiguity, as we say it in international relations, where they are trying to negotiate with Ukraine and demonstrate that they are there, on the border doing military exercises. And as it was developing, it became more and more clear that something is about to happen, and maybe they're about to make a military assault. However, I have to tell you, Frank, very few people in my circles have really believed that Russians can actually attack Kyiv and do whatever they've done during the last 11 days. So for a long time, even kind of in the foreign policy circles, security circles of Kyiv, there were discussions that, yes, of course, there is an option that Russians may actually mount a military assault, but a lot of discussion was still limited to the regions of Donbass and Luhansk, where many analysts believe that they would probably try to capture Mariupol and Kramatorsk and some other cities which would belong to the original oblasts, which are kind of regions where the so-called Donetsk and Luhansk national republics were proclaimed, and that Putin has recognized them. But we wouldn't believe, on that 24th of February, I woke up from the heavy explosions and blasts that we could hear in our apartment. And I have to tell you, with my family, we just bought a new apartment in December. So it was, brand new. We just moved in, and it was like very happy. Already have hosted several of our families, friends of ours who came over for some housewarming parties. And we were just down there. And when we heard the blast, my wife woke me up. She said, it started. We need to pack. We need to do it quick. Of course, we had some of the packing even done before that, but not really. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. I still decided to rush back to my office because this is where I had my passport. Also, my laptop was there. So I rushed to the office. I picked up my stuff, packed my 2 kids in a car, and we left the city around 8 o'clock in the morning. But Kyiv is a big city. There are 3 million people living there. So many people were trying to leave that same day. And we got stuck. We just checked the navigator, and it looked like we probably could get out of the city. But we miscalculated. We got in a traffic jam, and 12 hours later, we still haven't left the city. We still were kind of stuck there. Luckily, we had some of our friends whose house was on the way out, and we stayed at their place. It was one of those, very difficult times because, it was just only the beginning. And at night, we were woken up again by the blast and some shooting. We didn't know what was going on. We had to rush to the basement, stay there, and it would happen like several times per day. Then the next day, we decided to actually move a little bit further to another house of our friends, which was about like 40 kilometers south west from Kyiv. And we stayed at a different house. At the time, we also were looking for fuel. At the time, most of the gas stations in Kyiv have run out of gas. So we were lucky to find fuel to fill up the tank so that would be sufficient to take us to my hometown. That night, actually, we also heard a very heavy explosion. And that was a Russian airborne military plane, which was shot down by the Ukrainian Air Force. And that was very close to a place where we stayed. It was over the Vasyl military airport where it all happened. And we were like about 15 kilometers away. So anyways, next morning we got in the car. We drove to my hometown, which is about 350 kilometers southwest. And this is where I'm staying now. It's called Volochysk, Khmelnytska Oblast. It's still relatively safe here right now, but we do get bomb alerts on a regular basis. But, with all the stress that my kids have experienced during this first 3 days in Kyiv, it was extremely difficult also to my wife. And pretty much 2 days later, we've decided that it's time to get out of Kyiv, to get out of Ukraine. I wanted to take them out. And so we drove about 4 hours from my hometown to the Romanian border, and a place called Siret, which is outside of Chernivtsi. And there I saw a huge line of cars, about maybe 4-kilometer line at that stage. I then figured out that the best way for them is to cross the border on foot, because when you do it, you can kind of skip the line. It was interesting. I ran into a friend of mine in line there. She was there with 2 kids, with her parents in 2 cars. And ironically, I was in a meeting with her just 3 weeks before that at the Ministry of Economy. She was working as an executive assistant to one of the first deputy ministers of economy. And we saw each other there. And I'm like, oh my God, what a meeting here at the border. It felt like ages have passed from the moment we met in Kyiv in the government. And then there we were, looking like refugees. And she told me she's been there already 28 hours waiting. And there was still a huge line ahead of her. Anyways, I'm very thankful to my friend's family from Moldova who live in Romania. They just live 2-hour drive from there. And they were able to come and pick up my family. That's a Nemirenko family. I'm very thankful to them. This is where my family stayed there for a week. And this weekend, they were able to move to Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. And another friend of mine, Anna Eleni from the GMF, actually, she works for the GMF, and she offered help. Her parents have a free flat where my family now can stay. So they're there. And I'm back in my hometown here, sort of trying to do as much as I can, trying to amplify Ukraine's voice and communicate better, talk to media, coordinate some of the campaigns, and just to be also, that's a kind of an amazing time right now, because there's so much unity within the country. Everybody's helping each other. Like during the past 2 days, my parents' house here, we hosted 2 families of my friends who are fleeing Kyiv, who are going west. They all stayed here. It's interesting. Both families have lots of animals. The first family had 4 dogs and 1 cat. The one family staying this night, we had 4 cats and 1 dog. So nobody's leaving pets behind. Yes, and this is what is happening.
It's even difficult, I think, thank you so much for telling us, because I think sometimes we're watching from abroad. We can feel the struggle, but of course it's different to hear a first person account like that. And I think also because there's so much information coming, and it changes, the situation changes by the minute. And today I was following the news as well. So tell us what's going on right now in the country. There are different regions. Some regions are already suffering a lot from shelling, and it's very difficult to have a safe passage as well, as I can see from trying to create passages for people to flee, but that's becoming increasingly more difficult. So tell us about what's going on in the country as we speak.
Right. So the Russian military assault is taking place on 3 different fronts: from the north, from the east, and from the south. And the cities on this perimeter have been attacked and heavily shelled and bombarded. The cities which have suffered a great deal is the city of Kharkiv, which is a city of 1.5 million people, about 30 kilometers from the Russian border. It's been brutally shelled. Missiles and even cluster bombs were used, which are actually banned by the international convention. And there was also reports about this thermobaric bomb, which is called a vacuum bomb, which is extremely dangerous because it actually sucks the air out of your lungs and you basically die. And that bomb has also been used there. So the level of atrocity is huge. Chernihiv, the same city on the north of Kiev, it's still under heavy shelling right now, because Russian armed forces are not leaving the city, so they could keep on shelling it. The city of Mariupol, which is on the Sea of Azov, it's 500,000 people there, is actually under siege right now. 500,000 people have no access to electricity, water, or heating. For the 2 days in a row, there were attempts to create a green corridor so that people could exit the city, and it failed both times. And it just failed now about an hour ago. People are kind of trapped. So because they kind of arrange a ceasefire, and then once they start moving, the ceasefire is not effective. So that's a problem. The city of Kherson, which is in the Black Sea, has fallen. It's now occupied by the Russian troops. Interestingly enough, yesterday they tried to bus people from Crimea to sort of orchestrate a celebration of being welcomed by the Russian troops. And what people of Kherson did, they all actually flooded to the main square, brought Ukrainian flags, and there was a big demonstration there, defiant of all these occupiers. And this is really, something staggering of what's going on in terms of the unity, mobility, and the way people are fearless in a way. I have to tell you that the resilience of the people in Ukraine is pretty high, and the reason for that is that this war has been going on for 8 years already. When Russians grabbed Crimea 8 years ago and manufactured a war in the eastern part of Ukraine, and then actually directly intervened, and then done the war through their proxies, we already had 14,000 people who died back then, right? So many families have no people who were already fighting the war. So this has been going on for a long time. So we kind of, in a way, we had a much tougher skin. Plus, our armed forces have been trained in combat already, and that became much stronger than they used to be in 2014. So that's kind of a good thing. Apart from that, what's happening, we now have several million people who are internally displaced, and this is causing a humanitarian catastrophe. Apparently, there is logistical problems with the supply of food, medicine, and other basic products. I'll just give you some of the examples. My parents are medical doctors, and there was only one pharmaceutical place where medical drugs were produced, and they were based in Kharkiv. And since Kharkiv is now under heavy shelling, there is no way of how you can get morphium and other kind of these strong drugs, which are needed especially at the times of war where people are wounded, and they need heavy drugs as pain relief, and it's not accessible right now. People with diabetes are suffering because there is no insulin supply. In big cities, it's a big catastrophe. Of course, many stores are running out of supplies. So this is what's happening. Just where I am, 150 kilometers east from here. 1 hour ago, there was a missile strike on the airport in Vinnytsia. 8 missiles were hit and destroyed the building there, and I think they also destroyed the runway there. It just now happened in real time as we speak here. Already as of yesterday, the statistics was 1.3 million people who left Ukraine already. This is the largest exodus of people since the Balkan Wars. This is definitely the highest pace ever in the modern history of Europe, back since the Second World War. And the UN Agency for Refugees is saying that if this pace maintains, this is going to be a major refugee crisis in Europe, the biggest one since the Second World War, basically. Because Ukraine is a country of 42 million people. Today, we probably already have 1.5 million people who left, mostly going to Poland. Poland is taking the biggest number of people, then to Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. Some go to Moldova, but usually they transit from Moldova, they go to Romania. People are suffering, children are suffering. Already 31 children were killed, over 70 are wounded. There were even missiles which hit the maternity house. Hospitals were bombed, schools were bombed. A building of the university in Kharkiv, which is the oldest university in Ukraine, was established in 1805. Their sociological department was destroyed totally. I mean, there's nothing left there. It's really, Katya, this is just bizarre what's going on. I've seen it in the movies, and now I feel like my life is a movie, and it's really difficult. And you know what? We just, in a way, despite all of this, we still would not believe it, what's going on, and why would Putin do it, and what is he trying to pursue? There was some pro-Russian sentiment, especially, by the way, I mean, this is so ironic. The cities which were most heavily attacked, Kharkiv, Kherson, Chernihiv, these were probably the most kind of Russian-speaking cities in Ukraine, where the pro-Russian sentiment was probably the strongest. I would say maybe 20% of kind of more pro-Russian sentiment. But after this, it's gone. All people are united. They hate Russia. They hate Russians. They hate Putin. This is just something which we will not be able to forget or forgive for several generations ahead of us, because now we know. I mean, many families are affected, and what we've seen and the atrocities which they've seen, it will live with us forever. And this is something which unbearable what's going on. I mean, Ukraine is bearing the brunt, which is unfathomable. I mean, I could never imagine that would happen. Never. But it did. And that's really devastating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to hear you say all those things, because some analysts keep saying that or perhaps this could have been predicted, but probably not in the scale that it is. So it's devastating, and I think we are all have been very impressed with what we have been seeing on TV, and we have been hearing as well the accounts from people like you, and we are impressed by the resilience, like you mentioned, the resilience of the Ukrainian people. You can see that there's a lot of support also coming from other countries. I mean, we see also many people trying to help, and also companies acting quickly as much as they can. We just saw more actions being taken today and yesterday from companies withdrawing their services from Russia. It's important to acknowledge there are protests going on in Russia. There are people who don't agree with what's going on, and it's important for the information to reach them, although now it's more difficult with the current new laws that are being imposed. But I know I have Russian friends as well, and they are extremely They are not happy, of course, and they are totally against it. And it's a completely mad situation because some of them are afraid to speak out because they know they have families there, and then the government goes after their families and friends. So it's a very aggressive system, and it's a very aggressive situation. But I think our hearts go out to Ukraine right now. And I think the more information that we share, it's important to understand what's going on. I hope your family are safe. Are they, I mean, of course, they are away from you, so it must be devastating, but how are, are they keeping their hopes up? How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I talked to them on the phone. So they now, yesterday moved to a new place, and my good friend Anna Eleni, she is taking them out on in the city to show them around. Yeah, my son keeps on asking. He's just 5, so he keeps on asking when I'm going to be with him, because he just does. When we kind of departed last week, he didn't know when we're going to see each other, right? So it's kind of difficult and heartbreaking. And we as men, I mean, my friend just got drafted in the armed forces just 2 days ago, and he's an executive working for a multinational company. Previously served as the Ukraine's diplomat, and he's just been drafted, right? So apparently we all here are just we'll take up the arms and we'll have to fight. This is just a matter of timing of when this is going to happen. Apparently, we do need the support of the free world to be able to keep on fighting, because we do need military assistance. We need air defense systems. We need jets. We need ammunition. We need weapons. And this is how you can help, and the West can help us. Apparently, to alleviate the humanitarian catastrophe, we need medicines and food and clothes and whatever we can get to somehow make it easier for those internally displaced people and those who were forced to flee the country, because a lot of people, people didn't have time to pack or think. They just grabbed whatever they could and moved out. And you see, there were some people who kind of stayed longer in Kyiv now, but the longer it lasts, people start leaving, and I think it may actually be impossible to leave very soon, because there are more Russian troops encircling the city, and they may actually start bombing it, just as they've done in Kharkiv. Apparently, the Putin regime has to be punished, and I agree with you. We have to probably differentiate, because there are some exceptions in Russia, and there are, of course, people in Russia who do not support it. It's I have relatives in Russia, and many Ukrainian families have families in Russia, right? As you can imagine, all these connections have been severed. People are there very isolated. They're brainwashed. They don't have any access to the information. It's all state propaganda. It's very Orwellian. It's like 1984. There was just this Russian politician. She made a speech and saying that sanctions are good. All the bans are good because they give us freedom. This is like calling white, calling it black, and so it's like totally. It's like from the book. This is just bizarre what's going on there. I know that people get bitten there and they can be put on detention for 15 days. But if you look at what we have to suffer through, we get killed here, and this is what is happening. So, of course, I would like to see more Russians demonstrating. And our call is, of course, we need to punish Russian. We need to punish Putin, first of all. But how do we do that? We, of course, have to impose, the West has to impose severe sanctions on his cronies, on his, kleptocrats around him who become filthy rich, seize their assets abroad, put sanctions over their central bank. And there is also a call on the international companies to divest from the Russian assets. And it was good to hear that some of the major oil and gas corporations have committed to leaving and divesting from Russia. Other companies have also committed to leave. MasterCard and Visa have banned have stopped operating there, and more to come, and more to come. And from a rational standpoint of view, I don't know why Putin did it, because the level of suffering that he's going to bring to his 140 million people is huge. And this is what he's the only one who's responsible for that. He was the only one who made that decision. So I really hope that by starting this war, he's actually expedited the end of his regime. because sooner or later the truth will come out, and he will not be able to sustain. Already his economy is under heavy pressure, and Ukrainians fight fiercely. He thought he would take over Kyiv in 2 days. 10 days, 11 days later, we're still standing, and we keep on fighting. But their economy is going down the drain, and it's not like that he's going to stop and withdraw it, and they're going to be lifted. That's for a long time. That's for a long haul, and I hope his people will understand it, and they need to take him down, not U.S. or NATO or Ukrainians. These have to be Russian people who need to take down Putin. Just like that. That's their responsibility, and it's up in their hands to do it.
Yeah, it's and they're losing jobs as well. A lot of jobs today. I saw the news that Zara also shuts all their stores. All the companies are joining like this as well. You just mentioned the credit cards as well. It's becoming increasingly difficult. So there's a lot of pressure on that. But of course, the heartbreaking images come from Ukraine. We saw also images of hospitals with children, patients of cancer, and a makeshift hospital on the ground. I've been following, Clarissa Wards, who does an excellent reporting on all the human stories. And that is just, I think all of us can feel the pain, because what unites us as human beings, all of us want the same thing. We want to live in a safe society, in a safe place. We want to be able to provide for our families. If you ask anybody around the world, they will give you the same answer. The majority of people, right? They will say, I want to provide for my family. I want to live in a safe place, and I want to have some fun as well when I can. So that's the thing and so it is absolutely devastating to see what's just been happening like that all of a sudden. And like you said, over 1,500,000 people already are misplaced. And I think we all want to help. A lot of people have been getting in touch with us here at 1 Million Voices, because one of the main goals here, the mission, we have always tried to champion and charities, organizations that are really making a difference and helping people in need. This is a big part of the project, and many people have been asking. We have been sharing already information on international organizations like the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, UNICEF, other charities that are having already trying to do important work on the ground. But I want to hear from you as well. How can we help? Do you have any other charities, organizations that we can reach out and make donations? What can we do?
Look, absolutely. I would like to promote Ukraine Charity. It's a London-based charity organization which was founded in 2007. It was set up by the Ukrainian professionals in London, and originally the goal of that was to support children in Ukraine, generally children of Ukraine. But now they are raising money for those children who are suffering because of this military assault. So Ukraine Charity, they have their website there, a London-based organization, and there's also another one which is a small NGO just at the place where I am right now in Khmelnytsky. Khmelnytsky is still a safe place, but now because of such a huge influx of people from all over Ukraine who are in transit, or who are even staying here for a little bit longer, because now it's considered to be a safer place. It's called the Worms of Native Hearts. There's also a possibility to wire money over. The only problem is that for the London-based charity, it's kind of easier. You can do it with a credit card and make a donation. With this charity, which is based here, I know people personally there who are now helping all these people who are moving out, looking for accommodation, and just distressed people. This is where the SWIFT is available. But maybe there'll be somebody there who will watch this show, our live conversation, be able to make a donation to that organization. I would really appreciate it.
I'm going to ask you a favor, Vasyl. Are you able to write here on the comments the name of the two organizations so people can know how they are spelled, and they can contact? Could you just, you can go now. Yeah. But we're going to share afterwards as well. But just because there are people watching, and if they immediately want to know which organization they can. But of course, we're going to continue this work. We're going to continue sharing information. We're going to share more information about these two charities that we just nominated. But we are going to continue sharing information on how you can help. That's a big part, like I said, of our. There you go. You're writing there.
Yeah,
Ukraine Charity. Yeah.
It has a very generic name, but it's ukrainecharity.org basically. So it's kind of easy to find. Another one, I'm not sure if they even have worms
And what
of
about the local one? The local
yeah,
one
yeah,
that is the
local
same.
one. I'm not sure what their infrastructure is. Native Hearts, but you know, if anybody contacts me later, I'll be happy to send more details and everything. It's called Warmth of Native Hearts. It's based in Khmelnytsky, helping you know, those. So, but anything, you know, anyways, the Ukraine Charity kind of easier. This one is a little bit more complicated, but it's all right. I mean, whoever can support either one is totally fine. It's very, you know, it's very important because we do need financial aid. We need money to be able to get over it. I didn't, you know, of this 10 past days, you know, there was just Ukrainian economy has been heavily impacted by the original Russian assault 8 years ago. So there was a research done by a London-based think tank called the Center for Economics and Business Research. They've calculated that the cost of war for the past 8 years already amounted to $260 billion. Now, for the past 11 days, the level of damage that has already been inflicted, I mean, there was a calculation. I don't know I don't have the exact number, but it's, you cannot imagine, staggering, because most of the airports are destroyed in the country, roads are destroyed, bridges are blown up. You know, residential buildings in Kharkiv, I think over 200 residential buildings were destroyed. People cannot live there anymore. Certain cities like Irpin and Bucha, which is outside of Kyiv, they've been totally raised. I mean, I don't know how people can come back and live there, you know, and all these casualties. So Ukraine just only started after COVID. You know, there was, our economy started, you know, picking up a little bit. We just started, you know, demonstrating some positive trends. And here you go, all these Russian missiles and the Russian troops on the ground and just destroying our country. This is so heartbreaking to watch, you know. And we are not a rich country. Ukraine is one of the poorest countries in Europe. And for us, you know, seeing a little bit of progress, you know, and it was so difficult to grow the economy during the past years because we were always distracted by this war that Russians have been waging there on a continuous basis. It was not reported all the time, but it would always cause casualties. We would spend more money on military. We were distracted. We had a hard time, you know, attracting investors because nobody wanted to invest because it was Russia where it was waging war there. And now with all this damage, what they are now trying to do, after they occupied Kherson, they're preparing an assault on Mykolaiv, and now there are reports that they will be bombing Odessa. And Odessa is like a jewel on the Black Sea, one of the most popular destinations for people, for tourists to go there, but it's also a key strategic port. We use Black Sea ports for our export, and 60% of our export goes from the Black Sea. We are one of the biggest suppliers of grain and wheat on the world market. If Russians block our access to the sea, we're going to see some serious implications in the Middle East and Africa, because food supplies and food security of those countries depend on Ukraine. And this is real. This is serious what's going on. There were also some wild reports. I mean, this is what happened. Russia's military captured one of the biggest nuclear power plants in Enerhodar, Zaporizhzhia the other day. From what I hear, they kind of left it already, but they would shoot the missiles. I mean, they should shoot from the tanks. They hit one of the administrative buildings. It caught on fire, and it was extremely dangerous. And that nuclear power plant has 6 reactors, and all 6 reactors are filled with nuclear fuel. If one of those reactors is undermined or is exploded, the level of nuclear contamination will be staggering. The whole Ukraine, part of Russia, and a big part of Europe will be unlivable if it happens. We have 4 other nuclear power stations in Ukraine, and Russians keep on, you know, shooting with missiles. They, according to Pentagon, they already used over 500 missiles, cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, which were, you know, hit at Ukraine. Now they use aviation to heavily bomb other cities, artillery. This is really scary, you know, especially when you are somewhere there in the vicinity. Kyiv is getting ready for a major fight. Many of my friends are there, you know, they are defending the city. They took up the arms, and I really, you know, very proud of how courageous they are. But I mean, you know, on 11th day, I certainly see myself being there as well. So it's just a matter of time of when it's going to happen.
And you lost a friend already, right? I saw.
Yes,
Yeah.
from the Institute of International Relations. We studied foreign policy together. He was with us. He was actually already a veteran, so he already participated in the first Russia-Ukraine war, as we call it. So he was in combat, so he had some training. So naturally, when it all started, he was one of the first ones who just got in, and he was fighting the Russian airborne troops, which were landing in at the military airport in Hostomel. So he was there, and he just got killed 3 days after the initial invasion. So this is so tragic, and 3 kids left behind without a father.
So sorry to hear that. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's even difficult to say the right words in a moment like that. But and also it's extremely difficult to, of course, to predict what's going to happen, right? I mean, some people, what we can see at least, and we can say, and today I was watching some, if we can say, reassuring news from government officials here in the UK as well and abroad, saying that, you know, Russia underestimated, we can see that they underestimated the resilience and the unity and the power of the Ukrainian people and the resistance and everything they were saying, the president, everybody getting together. I think they probably underestimated. I mean, they calculated the sanctions, but not possibly the extent and the speed that this is all happening. We are seeing, of course, also there is a long line of I think tanks, Russian tanks outside Kyiv, and they are suffering from a lot of problems there. Morale apparently is not that as high as they also wanted to be. And we just mentioned, you know, people trying to help from all over the world. So we are seeing, but it's difficult to talk about hope. I know it's difficult, but do you feel hopeful? How do you see things unfolding? What are your feelings, you know, when you look ahead? I know it's a difficult question to ask and answer, but let's try to at least come up with this and think about this.
Yeah, there was a survey which was done yesterday or the day before yesterday among the Ukrainians, and 82% of Ukrainians believe they're going to defeat Russia. This is very optimistic, I should say, and but I'm one of those who believe we will prevail. We don't know what's going to happen. Situation is very fluid. It's changing. Apparently, the military might of Russia is much bigger than that of Ukraine. But as you rightly have pointed out, the morale at the Ukrainian armed forces is much higher. We are there defending our country. We are all united, and the resistance is very fierce. So that's, you know, that's when I look at this people, at the civilians who make Molotov cocktails. There were pictures of handicapped people making those Molotov cocktails. Then there was a video actually when people in a car, like driving Toyota or something, and they throw a Molotov cocktail while driving at the Russian armored personnel vehicle, and they just escape. You can imagine what kind of courage people have. And there was a farmer who stole a tank, you know, and drove it away with a tractor. So people are defiant, people are not afraid, and this gives me inspiration. This gives me hope. Of course, it may change, but on the 11th day of this horrible assault, I still feel strong. I feel angry. You know, during the first initial 5-6 days, my mind was blurred. It was very difficult to think, to express your feelings, or even put your words in something coherent. But then, as it kind of you know, on the 7th day, I think on the 6th day, I got more clarity and kind of more structure. Once I could take my family away to safety, you know, I've started, you know, doing something. I've started, you know, becoming active in comms and talking to media and doing some other stuff. So this all, and I just feel everybody's is involved. Everybody's doing something. So even if you are have not taken up the arms, we're all involved in this big war.
Yeah, and I think it's all of us. We can only hope, right? We can only hope that this is resolved as soon as possible. A peaceful solution can be reached, and we don't see more people suffering and dying. But it also, I think it's important to acknowledge what you just described, the scenes you described. We can watch them, we can see them. I mean, footage is being sent, people are sharing on social media. It's a different world. It's not the same world as in the Cold War, where people really couldn't have access to information on both sides. Was difficult to know what was going on the other side. Now we can see, even in Russia, I mean, now it's becoming more difficult because foreign press is just leaving Russia, but we are hearing things from reputable sources, and so information is very important. And we can see those images, we can see that you are, uniting, and you are very strong together. And I think everybody is feeling touched by this, what we see in Ukraine right now. And I thank you so much, Vasyl, for sharing your story here, for telling us what's going on, for telling ways we can help. I can only thank you, because I know, you must be going under an extremely excruciatingly difficult situation right now. I wish good health, safety for your family, for you as well, for everybody that, all Ukrainians. And, any last words they would like to say? Before we also want to thank everybody who's joined us here today, and for all the messages that we have been receiving, people sharing the link to this live feed, and people connecting with 1 million voices. Thank you so much for your support. It really means the world. It makes a difference. Even if it's a small gesture, it makes a huge difference. Thank you. Also, we're going to save this video here, and we're going to share on our feed, and we invite everyone to share on our WhatsApp groups with your family members, and to look for the charities that Vasyl indicated for us today, to contact them. And we're going to continue sharing information about other charities as well. I think there's one called Voices of Children, Ukrainian charity as well. I hear they're doing their best also to help children in Ukraine right now. And so I apologize for this light that keeps popping up on it's just my computer screen here playing around. But thank you so very much, Vasyl. Back to you.
Yeah, Katya, thanks a lot. I was happy to join you here in this conversation. I hope next time we do it, we'll be able to celebrate our victory and think about what could be done to rebuild the country, to rebuild the infrastructure, and help to alleviate of the suffering that people had to go through. But for the time being, yes, please do root for Ukraine, help Ukraine, join the demonstrations, put pressure on your governments for more support for the country. That's what's taking place here is historic. This is already, this is something. It's a major watershed moment. That it's important that we can stand up to the authoritarian rulers like Vladimir Putin. There is no place for them in the modern 21st century. So let's us stronger together. We're all stronger together. So let's keep on fighting.
Yes. Thank you so much. And the doors are open to you here. We'll keep in touch, and I wish you all the best and everything. I mean, my thoughts and prayers, positive vibe, everything goes to the Ukrainian people, to you, to your family. Thank you so much. And thank you once again to everybody for watching and joining us. And we'll continue this conversation. Thank you, Vasyl.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.